Welcome to Lab 31, Day 21. In this lab, we'll try to implement update for one-to-many relationship. So till now, we have done insert for one-to-many relationship, we have done select for one-to-many relationship, we have done delete for one-to-many relationship. In this lab, we'll see how we can implement update for one-to-many relationship. Now, before I go ahead and I start writing update code for one-to-many relationship, let's first understand how we will implement the logic, because the logic is not that simple as we have done till now. So whatever updates we have done till now, it did not have the one-to-many relationship flavor, right? So this update logic is going to be a bit complex. So let me first help you to understand how I will be implementing the update, and then we will start writing the code. So currently, in our project, when a person goes and selects a customer, for example, now I have selected this test 1 to 3, he can do two things. First thing is, he can go to the hobbies here and he can add new hobbies. So for example, now you can see I have selected this customer test 1 to 3. He already has one hobby called as watching movies. So a person can go and say, okay, now he is also interested in reading and swimming. Okay, so this is the first case. So let's take the first case first. So in this case, the end user, he has gone ahead and he has checked some check boxes, right? So this watching was already existing in the database. The reading and swimming, he has just added new ones. So what will happen now is, you will first go and check in the behind code, you will go and check, okay, are the checkboxes checked? Yes. So if the checkboxes are checked, the first thing is, do they exist in the DB? If they exist in the DB, don't do anything. So for this watching movies, I will not do anything because it is already existing in the database. But then, when I come to reading and swimming, it does not exist in the database. So I will go and insert those hobbies into our customer hobbies table. Okay. So the first case, if the checkbox is checked, I will first go and check in the database. If they exist, I will not do anything. If they do not exist, I will go and insert, the hobbies into the hobbies table. Now let's consider the second path, or the second case. Now let's say that the end user goes and he removes an existing hobby from the database. So for example, when he goes and he selects his test 1 to 3, you can see that this watching movies is already inserted for test 1 to 3, right? So let's say that he goes and he unchecks this. That means he wants to go and delete this hobbies for this particular customer, right? So in that case, what will happen is, so we will say, yes, is the checkbox checked? No, it is not. Does it exist in the database? If yes, then you will go and you will delete the hobby. In case it does not exist, then you will not do anything. So what we'll do now is, this logic which we have just thought about, right? We are going to go and implement this logic in our code. So we will loop through all the checkboxes. So if the checkbox is checked and if it exists in the DB, we will not do anything. If it does not exist in the DB, we will insert into the database. And the second path, if the checkbox is not checked and if it exists in the DB, we will delete the hobbies. And in case if it does not exist, right, we will not do anything. So let's go ahead and implement this logic in our code. So now the first thing what we'll do is, let's go in the hobbies class and let's go and create a simple update function. Okay, so let me just go and create a simple update function. Now this update function will actually go and update the hobbies into the database. Now again, this update function cannot be standalone because the hobbies, it's completely related with the customer, right? So we have to say that, this hobby which is going to be deleted or inserted, it is related with which customer ID, right? What is the hobby ID and is it checked or not? Okay, so in other words, if you remember, right, the previous logic which we just displayed, depending upon it is checked or not, accordingly the logics will fire. So in other words, whenever the user interface actually says that he wants to go and update a hobby, he has to tell me for which customer it is, what is the hobby ID, and is it checked or not. So let's first go ahead and create the CLS SQL Server object over here. And the second thing is, now we'll do is, we'll say here, if the checkbox is checked, then we would like to go and insert these hobbies, right? So I'm going to go and insert this hobbies to that particular customer. So I'm going to say here customer ID, whatever is passed here, and the hobby ID. And in case if it is unchecked, that means that I need to go and delete the hobbies, right? So I'm going to go and delete the hobbies for the particular customer. So if everything goes fine, we just return true from here. And we need to do one more thing here. If the checkbox is checked and if the hobby does not exist in the DB, then only go and insert the hobbies, right? In case the hobbies is already existing in the database, then we don't need to do anything, right? So we need to go and create one more function which actually goes and checks if this hobby exists for a particular customer or not. So let's go to our data access layer, and in this data access layer we'll go and create one function here called as the isHobbyPresent function. Now you can see that I already have a ready-made code, and I'm going to go and run you through this code, what exactly this code does. So if you see this function name is isHobbyPresent. It takes a hobby ID and a customer ID, and you can also see that there is a nice select here, and this select statement, what it does is it actually goes and selects the record by using the customer ID and the hobby ID. And if this record exists, right, it actually goes and returns true. So you can see that it actually uses this command over here, which actually has the select statement. It then goes and loads a data set, and it then says that okay, if the data set is having counts more than 0, that means there is a record existing, or else there is no record existing. So this isHobbyPresent function, it actually goes and fires a select statement, and it tells us if for this particular customer if this hobby exists or not. So what we'll do is, let me just quickly go and first build this solution over here, right? And now the next thing is, so you can see that there are 0 errors, good. And over here we'll say if obj.isHobbyPresent, if this hobby is present for this particular customer ID. So if this hobby present is equal to false, then only go and insert the customer into the hobby into the database. So now that we are done with the middle tier part of the update, now let's go and call this function in the behind code. So in the customer.cs, let me go and create a function here called as private void update hobbies, right? And this update hobbies function, it will actually go and update the hobbies into the database. And let's go and copy the code from insert hobbies. So if you remember, right, we had an insert hobbies function. So let me just quickly go and take this code and copy this in the update hobbies function over here, right? So just to quickly recap what that code is, if you remember, it actually goes and loops through the controls in the panel. It checks if it is a checkbox, and then it goes and invokes the functions of the hobbies, right? But we need to now go and do some tailored changes here, because this is not an insert, it is update, right? So the first thing what we need to do is, it's either checked or not checked, right? We'll not check the condition here, because we have to go and pass this thing to the update hobbies function, right? So we'll first go and remove this, so we are not worried that this checkbox is checked or not, right? Second is basically we need to go and call the update hobbies function and not the insert hobby. So I'm going to go and call here dot update, right? And in the update, right, we need to pass 3 things. One is we need to go and pass the customer ID. So we'll take the customer ID from the text box. If you remember, we had a hidden text box, so we'll take the customer ID from the text box. Second, the hobby ID will be the ID which is there in the checkbox. So if you remember, right, our checkbox ID is nothing but the hobby ID. And the last one is it is checked or not, that we will do by using the checked obj o checkbox dot checked, right? And again, this text box, we need to convert this into an integer. So I'll just say here convert dot to int So just recapping what we did with the update function here. So the first parameter is the ID, which we got from the text box. Second parameter is the hobby ID, which we are getting from the checkbox. And the third parameter is the checkbox checked or not, so that we are getting from the checkbox object checked property. Okay. So now that we are all set, now let's go and call this update hobbies function in the update in the update button click. Okay. So here we are going and updating the customer. So this goes and updates the customer. So after this, what we'll do is we'll go and call the update hobbies function. Great. And just quickly one more thing over here. We have said here txt id, right? This should be txt id.text, because if we just say txt id, then it will actually pass the object. Okay, but we actually want the value of the object and not the object, right? Right. So it looks like this is all set. So now let's go back again to our update function here, and let me go and put a breakpoint, and let's see how this works, right? So let me just go and do F5 here. So let me just put my username here, my password, and let me try to go and fire the update function. So let me just select this test123, and let me go and add a new hobby now, writing. Okay, so we already have watching movies, and I'm trying to add writing, and let me click on update. So there goes the debug point. So let me just go and step in. Oops. If you remember, right, we had commented the update code. Okay, so what we'll do is let's go and uncomment it. So let us go and uncomment this code. Okay. And second, this update customer, the hobbies is now a part of the hobbies class, right? It is no more a part of the customer class. So if you see the update customer function here, it has hobbies, but let's not pass hobbies over here. So let's go and let's first go and remove the hobbies from the from the customer class. It is already removed. So let's go and remove it from this update customer. So there it goes. We don't need the hobbies here also. There it goes. Right. Let me just go and build this solution just to ensure everything is fine. Great. Let me just go and run this again. So there the application is running. So let me just go and put the credentials. Now let me go and select this first record here. And now you can see that basically writing is selected. So what I'll do is I'll go and select one more hobby here, reading. Okay, and I'll say update. So there it goes inside the debug point. So now if you see over here in the screen, the first checkbox is reading. So this checkbox here is reading, and this reading is checked equal to true. So that is great. You can see this reading is checked true. So it goes in, it comes in here. Now the first thing what we'll do is we'll check that if reading exists in the database or not, right? So it goes here and it does not exist, so he goes and he inserts it. Great. Comes out. Now the next hobby which is present in the checkbox collection is swimming. And swimming is false. So you can see swimming is checked as false. So what will happen now is it will go in the else condition, right? Now you can see that there is a problem here. It goes in the else condition, okay, because this is not checked, right? And if it is not checked, we just go and delete it, right? But we should not be deleting just depending on the customer ID. We should also take the hobby ID, right? You can see now this delete here, it is just on the customer ID. So it should be on the customer ID as well as the hobby ID, right? So let's go and fix that. Right, I hope that everybody has understood this. This delete hobbies, right? If it goes and deletes depending on the customer ID, it will go and delete everything, right? So what we should have here is where you have the specific customer ID and the specific hobby ID, right? So it should have both the parts. Now one more important point to note here is that we cannot just go and modify like this, because this delete hobbies, it is also used in many other places. So if you go and build this, you can see that our application is crashing. So you can see that in other locations, right, this delete hobbies actually takes only one argument, and that argument is customer ID, right? So let's not go and modify like this. Let's go and create a overloaded method. In case you are not aware of overloading, please go and see the object-oriented programming videos. So I'm going to go and create a overloaded method of this, which will take in the hobby ID. So we'll say here delete from customer hobbies, where customer ID is equal to whatever customer ID which is passed, plus and hobby ID equal to whatever hobby ID is passed, right? So that's much better. And we will go and call the delete hobbies, and we will also pass him the hobby ID. Great. Some problem here. It takes only one argument. Let me just go and build this, right? So we can see that the yellow line has gone off. Great. So now let me go and run this. So there our application is running. Let's go ahead and let us select the first record, test 1 to 3. Now here what we'll do is, let's go and add reading, okay, and probably let's go and remove writing, okay. So when we actually selected a record, right, writing is already there. So what we are doing is we are removing writing and we are adding reading, okay. So let's go and click on update. So there we go. So the first checkbox is reading. It is true. It is checked. It is true. So yes, so it goes in. We check in the database. We insert the hobbies. We come out. The second checkbox is false, swimming. That is right. Okay. So there it goes. Now because it is false, it will go and delete the hobby ID for that particular customer. Comes out. Now goes the third checkbox. Now the third checkbox is actually writing, right, and we have removed writing, okay. So there it goes in again, deletes it. So this whole process keeps on going until all the checkboxes are iterated, okay. Now if I go and select this record, you can see that reading has been added and writing has been removed. So let me just go and make it more complicated. Let's say I remove reading, I add swimming, I add watching movies, okay, and I say update. So there it is. You can see swimming has been added, watching movies has been added. If I remove this, update, swimming is there, watching movies has been removed, okay. So you can see that we have successfully implemented one-to-many relationship update in our hobby table. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. In this video we were trying to understand how we can implement one-to-many update, one-to-many relationship update in ASP.NET. Thank you so much.